It is 11 p.m., and you are still checking your banking app trying to calculate whether this month's salary can survive the rest of the month without another unexpected drawdown. You keep telling yourself you will start investing when life finally feels stable, but the stable moment quietly keeps moving further away every year. Groceries rise slowly, rent climbs quietly, and modern workers often feel like they are running full speed just to maintain the same position. Most people are not afraid of volatility itself. They are afraid of losing the only financial safety net they currently have. Many people delay investing not because they are lazy or uninformed, but because survival mode quietly consumes all of their mental bandwidth. After years of layoffs, inflation, and debt pressure, the brain slowly learns that holding cash feels emotionally safer than taking long-term risk. The uncomfortable part is that money sitting still quietly loses purchasing power every year while inflation keeps moving in the background. Some people believe they are protecting their future when they may actually be extending the same financial fear for another decade. At the margin, we do not treat money like internet motivation. We examine why modern life makes financial decisions feel emotionally exhausting. This video explores the deeper psychological reason many people delay investing, because sometimes the real obstacle is not knowledge but accumulated financial fear. Investing used to sound like a shortcut to freedom, but now it feels like one more risk added to an already unstable life. Many young workers survive paycheck to paycheck while pretending everything is fine online because emotional bandwidth is already fully exhausted. After rent, transportation, food, subscriptions, and small debt payments, even a tiny drawdown can feel emotionally expensive. When people say they are not ready to invest, what they often mean is that they still do not feel financially safe. The problem is that modern financial stability keeps moving further away because living costs often rise faster than salaries. This is why many people stay stuck for years waiting for a perfect financial moment that never fully arrives. Psychologically, people feel the pain of losing money more strongly than the excitement of long-term compounding gains. Economists call this loss aversion, and modern financial systems quietly amplify that fear every single day. Constant recession headlines, viral layoffs, and impossible housing prices make financial risk feel dangerous even before it happens. But staying completely inactive also has a cost because inflation quietly reduces purchasing power over time. Inflation rarely feels dramatic overnight, but over 5 or 10 years it can quietly reshape an entire quality of life. Ironically, the people most afraid of losing money often lose the most valuable investing asset of all, which is time horizon. Most people think investing is about numbers, but for many workers it feels more like managing constant emotional volatility. A small red drawdown on an investment app can trigger the same stress response people feel during real financial emergencies. Often the real fear is not losing money, but feeling like proof that you failed at adulthood. Modern culture treats financial mistakes like personal flaws. So many people avoid investing entirely just to avoid embarrassment. People who seem calm about market volatility are often just living with more emotional and financial breathing room. Someone with savings, support, or higher income usually experiences risk very differently from someone surviving paycheck to paycheck. Comparing financial journeys is misleading because not everyone begins with the same level of stress, debt, or stability. Some people make their first investment calmly, while others invest with quiet fear that their bank account could collapse overnight. Rising living costs and unstable work conditions make financial anxiety feel rational instead of irrational. There is a difference between being careful and spending years trapped in a permanent waiting mode. In long-term investing, small consistent actions often matter more than dramatic moves made too late. Sometimes the biggest obstacle to investing is not income, but the emotional fear of losing what little stability remains. A 27-year-old office worker kept saying he would start investing once his savings finally felt safe enough. First he wanted $5,000 saved, then suddenly $10,000 felt more reasonable because modern life kept getting more expensive. After several years, his bank balance grew larger, but so did the quiet anxiety following him every month. Modern finance rarely talks about how financial fear can survive even when income and savings both improve. Sometimes people are not chasing money anymore, they are chasing emotional safety that keeps moving further away. Another young couple started investing small amounts even though their finances still looked imperfect from the outside. What changed was not only their portfolio balance, but the way they started imagining the future again. For the first time in years, they felt like they were building toward something instead of just surviving each month. Sometimes investing is simply a quiet way of telling yourself that your future is still worth planning for. Many people wait to feel confident before acting, even though confidence usually arrives after the first small step. That is why consistent investing can feel emotional, because it slowly changes how people see themselves over time. The real shift happens when someone stops living only to survive and quietly starts building a life instead. Modern systems make spending feel effortless while long-term investing still feels emotionally risky and painfully slow. Shopping apps deliver instant dopamine while compounding usually feels invisible for a very long time horizon. Many people buy temporary comfort during stressful weeks because future assets rarely feel emotionally urgent today. Social media quietly distorts financial expectations by making everyone else appear successful much faster than reality. Small investments often feel meaningless when the internet constantly displays expensive homes, vacations, and luxury lifestyles. Most financially stable people looked ordinary for years before their consistency finally became visible to others. The internet encourages people to compare their uncertain beginning with someone else's polished 10th chapter. Eventually, some people stop before investing at all because small amounts seem too insignificant to matter. Compounding keeps working through volatility whether someone feels confident, motivated, or emotionally ready to begin. Financial stability usually comes from repeatedly tolerating small discomfort instead of chasing exciting short-term rewards. People who improve financially often accept that fear never fully disappears before taking responsible action anyway. The biggest difference is usually not intelligence, but the willingness to start before feeling completely financially safe. A lot of people say they will start investing once life feels stable, but modern life rarely stays stable for very long. There is always another bill, another recession headline, or another financial risk waiting around the corner. The longer someone delays investing, the easier it becomes to believe they are simply not the investing type. In reality, most ordinary investors also started with uncertainty, volatility, and uncomfortable emotions. Nobody feels completely calm during their first investment drawdown, but some people slowly learn to stay invested anyway. Sometimes a small first investment changes a person psychologically long before it changes them financially. For the first time, they stop thinking only about surviving this month and start thinking about their future time horizon. In a world where people are exhausted by survival mode, even a tiny investment can become proof that hope still exists. Real hope is usually quiet, patient, and built slowly through long-term habits instead of internet motivation. Money often feels emotional because it is connected to safety, control, and the fear of falling behind. Sometimes delaying investing is not only a financial decision, but also a sign of living too long inside anxiety. Maybe what most people need is not pressure to get rich fast, but permission to begin slowly without shame. Not everyone will become wealthy from investing, but many people become emotionally calmer once they understand money and long-term risk earlier in life. For many workers, the real financial goal is not luxury, but simply reaching the end of the month without anxiety. In modern life, financial calm has quietly become an emotional luxury that many people work years to achieve. You may not need complicated investment strategies right now as much as you need a healthier relationship with fear and volatility. Many bad money decisions come from anxiety because panic often pushes people to buy, sell, or delay for too long. People who stay calmer during drawdowns usually make simpler and more consistent long-term financial decisions. The boring approach often works best because small, consistent habits quietly become powerful through time and compounding. Social media rarely celebrates it, but most long-term financial progress is built from ordinary routines repeated for years. Slow financial progress rarely looks glamorous, but over time it can make everyday life feel lighter and more manageable. The biggest change is often not more income, but finally having some emotional distance from constant financial panic. A more realistic version of financial success may simply mean no longer living in constant fear about the future. Sometimes the greatest financial victory is finally being able to sleep without feeling chased by the future every night. Maybe the real reason people delay investing is not laziness, but exhaustion from surviving constant financial uncertainty. When life feels unstable every month, the brain naturally chooses short-term comfort over long-term compounding. Not everyone grows up with enough financial security to feel comfortable taking even small risks. But understanding fear is very different from allowing fear to control every financial decision forever. Time keeps moving whether someone feels ready or not, and inflation never pauses for emotional recovery. Small, consistent actions usually matter more than perfect plans that never survive real life. The first investment may not transform your bank account immediately, but it can quietly change your identity. Going from survival mode to believing the future can still be built is a massive emotional shift. Nobody needs to become an expert overnight to begin building a healthier long-term relationship with money. Many lives change not because of dramatic moments, but because someone finally stops saying later. One day you may realize your financial calmness started with a tiny decision that once felt terrifying. Life did not suddenly become easy, but fear finally stopped making every decision for you. Maybe you are not as far behind as you think, because surviving modern life quietly consumes more energy than most long-term financial planning ever admits. When people spend every month trying to stay afloat, thinking about the future can start feeling like an expensive luxury instead of a realistic plan. Most long-term financial change comes from small, consistent habits, not dramatic overnight decisions that social media keeps pretending are normal. Investing is rarely about eliminating fear completely, because most people simply learn to move carefully through uncertainty and volatility over time. Everyone worries about losing money during a drawdown, but time disappearing quietly in the background often costs far more in the long term. Fear can feel strangely safe in the short term, especially when avoiding risk also means avoiding uncomfortable decisions about the future. If this conversation feels uncomfortably familiar, you are probably sharing the same financial anxiety that millions quietly carry every single day. The Margin will keep exploring the emotional side of money, work, and long-term financial pressure with calm storytelling instead of loud motivation. If you enjoy honest conversations like this, maybe this channel can become a quieter place to understand modern money without constant financial hype. So maybe the real question is whether people delay investing because they lack money, or because modern life quietly trains them to fear risk and uncertainty.